Heyo, welcome back to the Undrafted and Unqualified Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm Anthony here with Vinny. We've been talking a while of football already today. We've been talking for like the last hour, and we're doubling up episodes today. So, I wouldn't be surprised if this is on the shorter end. We're very similar here in these top 12 wide receiver rankings as opposed to the 24 through 13, which I did last week. That was a fun episode. A lot of oppositions. I was really trying to play devil's advocate, but we should be a little bit more similar in these top 12. But before we get into that, you know, Ashton Genty, I think it's worth bringing up.
Yeah,
That was a freak injury. They're saying knee, doing a prayer circle. It was really really concerning. Like, oh, this dude's done for the year. People are going out trading like a first and a second for Mike Washington, like
yeah, yeah.
crazy stuff. But Vinny, you were in a draft during the time.
I was.
So just share with everybody watching kind of what happened.
I know. I feel like right now the conversation has shifted on Twitter, wherever you get your fantasy news of like those lucky people that drafted in those 3 hour window, that 3 hour window where there was really a mystery of like what's really going on because the initial news was like you said that this guy's done for the year, that like it's a knee injury. That's never good news in general. So even a good news on a knee injury is long term. Like it's like you're missing a majority of the season. And so I happened to be in a league where I was at the 110 in a 12-man league. And I was genuinely considering Genty at like it not be prior to the injury. I was like mocking and I was picking Genty a lot at that turn or even at the like end at the 110. And I just with the injury in mind, I couldn't get myself to do it. He kept falling. Right when we got to like the sixth round is when I started like, all right, is this like looking people at the board? Is this worth it? And I just kept passing. I was like, I just don't want to waste a pick if this guy's out for the whole year. And that's what it sounds like. I took RJ Harvey over him. And that's the one that really stings because I was like, took it down
Hurts.
to the last 5 seconds and I was like, can I do it? And no, I need some stable picks to like have a stable RB room. And then he gets taken in the eighth round. Genty gets taken in the middle of the eighth round, which with the news we have now, that's a steal. Like this is an RB1 that everyone was high on, and you get him in the eighth round. So, I think it was cool to be part of that like 4 hour window where no one knew what was going on
Yeah.
and people got lucky. But now that we have a little more news on him going forward, it seems like he's still a guy to like monitor, I guess. Like it's not something that you're like fired up to pick him at the end of the first now still. Like it's still a little worrisome, but definitely better news for him that it's not long term, they're saying.
The most recent news from Ian Rappaport over an hour ago. The Raiders got good news on Genty's ankle, though his status for week one is still up in the air. The fact that it's even up in the
I
air and
know.
he hasn't been ruled out is crazy. But if it's a high ankle sprain, those tend to linger. That's
Mhm.
not a fun one. So, we're still waiting for more information, I think. As I was going through Twitter here, just looking, Chris Bell for the Dolphins expected to play in the preseason finale. That
Wow.
excites me. Like this dude
Yeah,
could come out
that's
and
been your
dominate
guy.
if he's on the field. And I've taken him off like my top 60 wide receiver ranks simply because I'm not sure if he plays, but the fact he'll play in the preseason finale, he'll go right back up there for me.
I
Um,
know.
so
There's just so much smoke with injuries right now of who's going to be
yeah,
healthy. There's a lot of injuries right now. Like there's a lot
so
of
many.
people banged up. And I feel like last year in the off season, there weren't a lot of major injuries and we kind of just went into the year. Then they started to happen. But like there's a lot of guys banged up, which makes drafting tough because
Yep.
you never know. Like just with the Genty news, you take him in the first round, and all of a sudden you think he's out for the year. But it's so
It's just crazy it's all happening before the season this year. Like this
I know,
feels like
I
we're in
know.
mid-season form.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. So
I think the biggest takeaway, and then we'll hop into these receivers. I think the biggest takeaway about the Genty news is it's easy to hit the panic button, but like be patient. We didn't get any confirmation. Wait till there's confirmation about something.
mhm.
Like everybody's like, oh, like he's done, he's done. You hear knee, and then it turns out it's not even his knee at all. So
Yeah.
I think it's just really important to wait for confirmation before we make, these decisions.
And also, this is one of like the more like that I can think of that like this has never really happened before, where they say knee injury, guy gets carted off, there's a prayer circle,
Right.
and then all of a sudden, like this guy's fine.
It's
Like
an
that
ankle.
I feel like
Yeah.
that's never the case. So
Yeah.
definitely an outlier. But like you said, like especially in dynasty leagues, there's no reason you should be shipping at Ashton Genty,
Yeah.
even if he was out for the year. Like it's like that's this guy that's still going to be a stud. So yeah, I got to be patient.
Yep, for sure. But with that, we got our top 12 receivers. And we're almost through all the rankings at this point. I forgot to do honorable mentions last week. You know, at this point, I don't think we really need to. So we'll just get into those top 12. As I said, a lot more aligned. But coming in at wide receiver 12, we have George Pickens. This is the one we differ the most in these top 12. I have him up at 10, Vinny at 14. So he comes in right there at 12 for us. Um, I'll start as the guy who's a little higher on Pickens. I think this is just, we saw it last year. We saw him just dominate last year. I know a lot of it, oh, well, it was without CeeDee Lamb. Even with CeeDee Lamb, he was still just dominating because this offense throws the ball a lot. This offense is one of the best in the league. And you want pieces in good offenses. And it seems like every year there's a duo that finishes top 12 at the wide receiver position. And I think the best bet to make is for CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens to do it this year. I think last year, I want to say it was Puka and Devontae Adams. So, it's not even like we're saying CD and Pickens are repeating, which would be harder to do. I think CD finished outside the top 12 because of the injury. So I'm in on Pickens. I think it's just a high passing volume offense. You're attached to Dak Prescott. You're attached to the touchdowns, elite offense. Not a great defense still, even though I think it'll be better. It means they're gonna have to score the ball a lot. They're gonna have to throw a lot. And I think Pickens is very talented, fits in this offense well. So I'm in on Pickens again for sure.
Yeah, no, I have them down at 14, so we're like you said, we're a little far apart there, 4 spots apart. But I agree with all that you said. I just think for me, the only other duo we can kind of think of that's more recent is T. Higgins and Jamar Chase, and that like T. Higgins is still drafted high. He was at one point after his like good, really good years in the past, like probably in the same range that Pickens is being ranked right now, with CD Lamb being up at the top. Yeah, it's just you know I think it does worry me a little bit with CD having a full year or going into the year fully healthy and like
Mhm.
has been the guy. But like Pickens was a stud, and like I think talent does just demand targets in the NFL. And he's in a contract year. Like they're probably gonna use him as much as they can if they don't plan on re-signing him. So, yeah, I think he's due for a big year. I just had some guys in front of him that it was close, but still very much a wide receiver one, borderline, like in my mind.
Yeah, I think a reason I'm in on him too. I know ESPN's rankings are kind of crazy sometimes, but I've done a couple like live mock drafts rather than just the practice draft where it's all the CPU doing it.
Hmm.
So I did want the 310 in the third round. Pickens is there sometimes, and
Wow.
that feels like a smash pick every time. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think it's just even in that spot, it's great. If you're considering him, late second. I understand the hesitancy a lot more. But
Hmm.
when he's there at the 310, it feels crazy not to draft him there.
Hmm. Yep.
All right, wide receiver 11. We have Malik Neighbors. Both of us are right there together on that. Both at 12, but since we're a little closer, we just bumped him one spot above Pickens for that reason. I think it's very clear Malik Neighbors what he can be if he's healthy. I simply think this is an injury dip for both of us. We still have no confirmation he's out there week one. Even if he is he fully himself? Does he get a full snap share? I don't know. I think it's going to take some time for him to get back to himself. And, for that reason, baking a little dip. Also, been hearing that the offense is really struggling right now in New York. So I think that's something I'm considering as well. But the second he's fully healthy, I don't care how bad Jackson Dart is, how bad the offense is, he will dominate targets. He is that good. So it's really just baking in some of that risk.
Yeah, definitely an injury dip because I think if he's coming into the year fully healthy, we're talking about like him up there with the names of CD Lamb, Amon, like he's in that range, and that's where he was drafted last year. I believe he was actually like a back into the first round pick last year. So
Yeah,
like
he
people were
was.
very high on this guy, rightfully so after the rookie year he had. Like that was a Jamar Chase, like Justin Jefferson type rookie year where
Mhm.
that he just solidified himself as a stud. So this is legitimately like a league winning pick. I think he's starting to get some more hype now that like it looks like he's going like week one's a real possibility. So he's starting to like creep out of that third round and back into the middle of the second.
Yeah.
But this spot just feels safer. I know I don't want to get aggressive and like put him in the top, you know, 6, 5, whatever it is. This just feels safer, and I feel better about him here. But definitely a lot of room to get up there in the top 5.
Yeah, I agree. Round two feels a little early for me. Like I definitely won't be taking him there. Round three feels much better. Um,
Yep.
so I think that's where I'm more comfortable right now. But I just checked where we had him last year. He was our wide receiver three last year, only behind Jamar Chase and CeeDee Lamb. So
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
that is a fully healthy Malik Neighbors. That's where he's sitting. So, like you said, he probably would be going like top six in
Yeah.
a redraft, like not even top six in terms of overall wide receivers. We're talking top six in the draft. So that includes, the Bijan, the Jameer Gibbs. So, I mean,
Hmm.
the you have to consider the fact that he can finish there. We're just obviously baking in the risk, and I think we're on the same page with that here.
Yep.
Number 10, we have Nico Collins. We're in the same spot with this as well. We both have him one spot above neighbors. Um, yeah. Oh, I haven't been doing like ADP, and I haven't been checking in. Let me.
Oh, how far above we are.
Yeah. Yeah. Let me see how we're doing with that stuff.
That's probably in line.
Yeah.
Um,
So if we look back to
Nico's 9
yeah,
on
Pickens, we're in line with in both ADP pretty much. We're a little lower than ADP on Pickens. Um, Malik Neighbors, we're actually a little higher. ADP, he's going 13. ECR, he's going 14. They have him ranked 14. So we're a little higher. And I think it's because we're also baking in that upside. But now for Nico Collins, again, the wide receiver 10 for us. Nico is at 9 in ECR and ADP is at 10. So we're there. I think a lot of this we're going to see very similarities across the board for the rest of the way to number one. Um, yeah, Nico, I want to jump in here because I think Nico is one of those guys who can dominate. And we've seen it before. Last year he was going wide receiver six, wide receiver seven, something like that. Last year there were a lot of games where he felt much more like a deep threat. He got saved by one catch that went 70 yards for a touchdown. And the rest of his game was like, he ended up with like three catches for 96 yards and a touchdown. And, in PPR, that's still 12 points, but that touchdown brings him up to 18. You feel good about it. And I think it's just one of those situations where for a minute, I was like, okay, there is nobody else there. Nico's going to dominate targets again. Now they bring in Kayshon Boutte, which is another piece of news that, I think he's a great receiver. I'm disappointed that the Pats didn't get a better return for him. But then again, he wasn't going to touch the field as much, and we did right by him after he requested a trade. But Bootie's a good receiver. Bootie will be on the field. I think Dalton Schultz is still going to run a lot of routes. I think Jalen Noel, this now gives him a chance to work into the slot. Xavier Hutchinson, same thing. Once they're back from injury, Tank Dell, when he's back as
Yeah.
well. I think this move to bring in Booty, I think really opens up this offense a lot more for the other receivers to take their time easing back into the offense and to take some pressure off of Nico. And because we saw last year some of the targets just weren't there as much, I think that's really why I'm taking a small dip on him. He can dominate, absolutely. And there's a reason why, we still have him up here. He's that good. But I think it is just something to consider. And he's never had a fully healthy season. He usually has a lot of games, but he's never been healthy for 17 games.
Yeah, it was a very quiet wide receiver eight finish. Like it felt like Nico Collins disappointed. Like if I just like thought about the year he had last year, but then like to see like, oh, he was still wide receiver eight. Like, wow, what a great finish. And it kind of felt like almost a Mike Evans year where it's like super volatile, where like he has these huge games and then there's some duds mixed in, and at the end of the year it's just like a back of a baseball card finish. Like, oh, okay, yeah, he had 1,200 yards and 8 touchdowns. Like, yeah, of course he did. But like you said, I think I was getting a little like, with the Jaden Higgins injury happening, I was like, oh, whoa, like this is
Yep.
kind of big for Nico. And then they immediately go get Booty. So, I think that shows that, Nico is obviously the one there, but they still need other guys in the mix to kind of like run that offense. So I think it's also really dependent on Stroud. Like, can he take a step forward and really be that kind of top pick that he was? But yeah, Nico, he does feel not, it doesn't feel as volatile this year. Like, I do feel good about Nico Collins. Like, I think he can be a consistent, I feel comfortable with him as my wide receiver one on my team for sure. So yeah, it just feels that I can't get him above some of the guys that we're about to talk about with these next few rankings just because of that like past volatility and injury history. But again, it's kind of a guy that, could slip into those with these names and you wouldn't really be surprised, but I just can't rank him above them right now.
Yeah, I think late second probably feels good for Nico too.
Hmm.
Early second, he was at like the 1-2 turn last year. That feels way too early this year. But
Yeah.
yeah, wide receiver nine, we have Chris Olave. He's at 10 in ECR, ADP. Olave is at 12. I think both of us are a little higher now on Olave. I know this is another situation where, depending on injury to the other guys, like Jordan Tyson, out for at least 2 months. I think that could linger because it's a hamstring issue. And we saw what Olave did last year with nobody else there. I think Olave is just an incredible receiver. I think this offense could get better going into year two with Shuck, with Kellen Moore. And, I'm in. I think I'm in on the fact that Chris Olave can dominate targets and be really good in a high powered Kellen Moore offense. So I'm in on him at 9, which is below where he finished last year.
Yeah, not much else to add. I think the Tyson injury, like the only thing to watch up until we get to the season, if you're a person that drafts right before the day before the season or like as close as possible, is if like you get some sort of news on Tyson. Because right now, like you said, it is kind of that there's a real possibility of being put on the IR at the beginning of the season, missing the first 4 weeks. And then if that's the case, then that kind of shows it's gonna linger, that it's kind of more than they kind of think. If he doesn't get put on the IR, then it's kind of like, okay, maybe he comes back like quickly. And that was kind of the worry with Olave, is like the hype that Tyson was getting in camp. It was just like, this guy looks so good. And it's still the case. So, but if Tyson's not on the field, there's, we saw what Olave did with basically the same receiving room last year. If Tyson's on the field, so no, it feels like a great pick, and I like this spot for him because again, I just can't get him above. Like I can't imagine Olave finishing as like wide receiver one overall, but this feels like a really safe spot to be your wide receiver one on a fantasy team.
Yeah, he feels like he should go in that Nico range, late second.
Yep.
I've seen
Yep.
him fall to late third sometimes. That's another like
Wow.
smash pick right there.
Yeah. Yep.
So yeah, he's a great pick, I think, in fantasy this year.
Hmm.
Coming in wide receiver 8, we're again on the same page. We have Drake London, 7 in ECR, 8 in ADP. So we're pretty much all in line. I think, Drake London's a tough one for me, right? Because we know he can do it, but he also feels a little like Nico Collins to me. There's just way less there than I think Houston has. And they're going to throw a lot more than Houston will. Houston's got an elite defense. They're going to run the ball a lot. But, the Falcons are going to throw a lot. And, other than Pitts, who else do you throw to? Jahan Dotson, Zachariah Branch? Like, I don't think so. I think Drake London is the target hog. And he just feels very safe. I don't know if I'll be drafting him anywhere just because he doesn't feel like a great pick. But he's going to be a great pick. And a second round wide receiver, you should be taking him in the second round. So yeah, I don't know much more else to say on that. If you got anything like,
Yeah, it's crazy to say, but it just does feel like Tua is if it seems like Tua is going to be the starter. And it feels like an upgrade over Penix. I just think it's like a Tua has, all the jokes aside, injuries, concussions, what all of that aside, he's been a reliable sort of guy for fantasy receivers. We saw what he did with Tyreek and Waddle, and like this might be the best quarter. No, I won't say that because Kirk had some okay years, but like I think Tua can support London and like for a really good year. And this feels like someone that I could see creeping up with these bigger names we're going to talk about. But last year, the only kind of risk right now is he was banged up last year, missed a good part of the season, like 6 or so games. So, um, you know, can he stay healthy? He has been in the past, so I don't really worry about it that much. But I just do feel good about. I won't say good, but I like his scenario right now to have a good year with Tua, if that's the case, if he's starting.
yeah, he's pretty young too, if I'm correct.
Yeah. Oh
I
yeah.
think he's going into what, year four maybe?
Yeah, I was just
Something
taking a
like
look.
that.
Yeah,
But
he's
yeah,
going into year 5.
oh wow, he's been in the league longer than I remember. But
Yeah,
um,
yeah,
yeah, I mean he's been solid throughout his career. First round NFL draft pick, top 10 overall. I think he went at the eighth pick in whatever year that would have been. So yeah, I mean I think he's a great pick. There's a lot to like with Drake London. Very safe, it feels.
yeah, yeah.
Number seven, we have CeeDee Lamb, who I'm at seven, Vinny's at six. ECR's got him up at five. ADP's got him up at five. So we're a little lower. To me, this is Pickens. There's a reason why I'm down on CD. Everybody's like, "Oh, CD's going to be great again." I don't understand why he's in that upper tier. Like, and maybe I could just be missing something. And like I said with Pickens, it's an elite offense. It's the Cowboys. You're attached to a great offense. But with Pickens there, like he wasn't doing wide receiver five things. So to me, I'm just a little concerned in that regard of like how can we put him up there if he wasn't doing that with the same offense that it's going to be this year. So I'm a little down on CD just because I don't think we saw it really. Like I really just don't think we saw it. And the offense is high powered. He's coming healthy this year. I love that for him. And absolutely he could finish at wide receiver one. Like honestly. So that's why you really can't rank him any lower. But that's why I think we're down at seven. You know, I maybe you're on the same page, but why are you down as well? Just like by one or two spots.
I think it is Pickens, and it plays a role because when you have a guy that we have Pickens ranked at 12, and these guys are only 5 spots apart, like we're projecting a lot of fantasy points for the both of them. So it's hard to imagine like you can only go so far, like you said. But I think the reason that he's far is because you know that season that he had where he was wide receiver one. Like you need to see a guy kind of prove that he can do that, and he did it already. So he's absolutely a candidate for wide receiver one role, but the chances of it are much less because of Pickens being there. So I will say though, like looking at his game log of last year, like I still feel good about him being in this range because the floor was still there. Like he still put up a consistent like 18 points per game during that stretch after the injury, and then he had a few duds at the last 3 weeks of the year. But there was a good like 8 or 9 weeks where it was just like 17, 20, 18, and like that floor is helpful from a top pick. But in terms of a first round pick, I'd rather go for a guy that we're going to talk about soon, like Justin Jefferson or someone like that, who just has more targets in his room and more upside to be the wide receiver one overall.
Yeah, I think like you said, with if you're a wide receiver one, like he missed 4 weeks last year because I'm not going to count that week three where he played 9% of snaps. And he had 18 and 20 points those first 2 weeks. And the targets are there even when he came back. But like after that, there's a lot of games where the targets are there. It just wasn't turning into touchdowns or anything either. So, 14, 15 points, 17, 11 points. Like he had from week 7 on, he had 2 games over 20 points, which were great weeks, but there were a lot of, fantasy playoffs, 17, 11, and 9. So it's just like I
Yeah,
have
the
my
fantasy. Yeah.
concerns. And if the touchdowns come back up, that's awesome. And he'll be great once again. But I just do have my concerns that I don't think he's gonna be sitting at 19 points a game or anything like that. And if you get 11, you're not that happy as your wide receiver one. So
Hmm. Yeah. I do kind of agree with your point now of like, should he be in this range? But I just think it is kind of, and that's kind of makes it, he has to be. And that kind of logic makes me a little bit out on him just because, like, why does the guy have to be? But there are reasons both sides. So it does kind of feel like a guy that I'm like not excited to go after in the first round for sure.
yeah, I think people kind of put him in this tier two with Justin Jefferson, CeeDee Lamb, Drake London. Um,
Hmm.
and they put him up at 5, like the top end of the tier, and I just can't get there. I think
Yeah.
he fits much more in this wide receiver 7 range because the upside is absolutely there. Um, all right, wide receiver 6, we have AJ Brown, who I have at 5, Vinny at 7. ECR is at 8, ADP is at 7. I'm the highest. So I'll start, I got him up at 5. I cannot get past the fact that I think this dude is going to dominate. He was really good. He finished at like wide receiver 10 last year in what a year was like terrible. It was not good to start the year. And like
No.
we're talking about this guy being like almost benchable and stuff like that. Like it was really bad to start the year. Still had a great second half, finished wide receiver 10. The Patriots come out, trade a first rounder for this guy who is 29 years old. Like he is getting up there in age in terms of, wide receivers. That's on the upper end of the spectrum. And now we're saying this guy has the best QB of his career, best scheme fit of his career. He's been dominating in camp and preseason. He went out recently, went like 7 for 7 and like 3 touchdowns
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
Quinion Mitchell, who,
Yeah.
by the way, Quinion Mitchell is a phenomenal elite, you could argue maybe even top 10 corner in the league. Like this dude is insane, and AJ Brown just dominated him. He fits so well with Drake May. I don't, when we compare him to CeeDee Lamb, for example, like I see a higher floor for AJ Brown. They're both in elite offenses, but you have Romeo Dobbs as the other guy you throw the ball to versus George Pickens. And I think he's going to dominate targets. I think he's going to get like close to 10 a game. High powered offense, touchdowns will come. I love everything about it. I really do. And people I think are kind of on the same page. But he's going in the late second a lot of time, early third even sometimes, and I'd go as early as the early second.
Yeah, no, it just the more you think about the situation, like you could even like I could add more. Like it's like returns with Mike Vrabel and to
Mhm.
the years that he
Yep.
had in Tennessee, being like a top five wide receiver, with not great QB play, and he was like doing that there,
Yep.
and he was doing it in Philly. Like he's always been that guy as a receiver, and then even more so if like he's dominating camp, and then Kayshon Boutte had a good role last year and the Pats were comfortable just being like, all right, like we can move on from you because we have our guy and we have like we trust like Romeo Dobbs. But I feel like it more so shows the trust in AJ Brown to just be an absolute animal all year and like legitimately push for a wide receiver one overall season. So just all the pieces come together and it's just a guy I'm really excited about personally because he was a my guy last year for me, but I kind of backed up that my guy and I have him in all three of my dynasty leagues. So it's a guy that I pushed a lot of chips in last year. And I didn't picture a trade to New England, but I'm glad it's here. And like
Yeah.
this is going to be a fun season to watch for him.
Yeah, and consider Diggs last year was not a full-time player, still had
Hmm.
over 1,000 yards, still finished at wide receiver 14. Like, I'd be shocked if AJ Brown's not a full-time player. So imagine what he does with that when Diggs was as good as he was last year. I just
Yep.
the pieces are there. Everything is sitting right there for me. And maybe there's a little bit of Patriots bias here, but everything's just lining up. Like they paid a lot, first,
Hmm.
and I think a fifth too, maybe. But like they spent a lot to bring in AJ Brown. They are going to utilize him. And
Yep.
Drake May has also come out and said, somebody asked like, how are you gonna spread the ball around? He's like, I don't think the receivers care that much. Like, we're here to win. So in other words, is kind of, to me at least, I'm taking it as I'm going to get AJ Brown the ball. And if you're unhappy with me not passing you the ball, like, then you don't care about winning. And
Yeah.
that's the way I'm taking it is he wants to pass the ball to whoever's open and whoever's going to win the game. That's going to be AJ Brown. So I'm very in. Like he's going to be a borderline my guy. I just don't think I want to double up because you had him last year. So
I wouldn't blame you if you did.
we'll see. We'll see. We'll see if I
It
end up
it
doing it. But
it honestly feels like the Diggs get Josh Allen getting Diggs and like taking that step forward to like just being elite year after year. And that we saw the season Diggs had, and like it feels that level where it's just gonna be every week he's doing something that like fantasy owners can be like, wow, I love that I got this guy in the middle of the second or end of the second.
yeah, we'll save any more talk in maybe for the my guys episode. We'll see. Wide receiver five. We have Justin Jefferson. Vinny's at five. I'm at six. So it comes in right above AJ Brown. Six in ECR, six in ADP. I think I'm a little concerned of is Kyler going to return to form? Can he support a wide receiver one? Absolutely. He was supporting D Hop for a couple years in Arizona and he was dominating. My concern though is we saw how bad it was with McCarthy last year. I want to trust Kevin O'Connell, but I don't think we can really put him any higher simply because there is a lot of concerns. There's a lot of risk in taking Jefferson as well.
Yep.
So that's where I'm at with him. I have AJ Brown higher than both Jefferson and CeeDee Lamb because I think he's has the highest floor of the three. But I think Justin Jefferson might have the highest ceiling too, because we know how good he is as an NFL wide receiver. And you have to trust Kevin O'Connell. You have to trust what he does with QBs. You have to say Kyler Murray is quite the upgrade. I mean, they came out and said he's a starter a bit ago at this point. Like
Hmm.
they made it very clear. I think Kyler's more mature. I like him better. Just like JJ McCarthy's out here. We sit in other sides of the classroom. He's just a classmate. Like, dude, really,
Yeah,
really well PR trained right there.
yeah.
But yeah, I think the situation bodes well for Jefferson, but there just has to be pause as to why I just can't get him any higher than six. But that doesn't mean I'm not in on him and I don't like him where he's going.
Yeah, I think like you said, the consensus is definitely that there is still a lot of risk. And I'm like I just picked him at the 110 in one of my redraft leagues in a 12-man league. And I feel really good about it. I just think when you think about like we last year made us forget how like historic this guy really is. Like every record you want to talk about, it's not even Jamar Chase. It's Justin Jefferson. Like every record, like youngest to do this, fastest to this, most to do like most before a certain amount of games. Like it's all Justin Jefferson. And like this is a guy that played 10 games and still had 1,000 yards and 5 touchdowns. Like this is a couple years ago, but like last year he still had like 1,100 yards and it was such a bad year. So like this guy is so talented, and like you said, like we kind of should trust Kevin O'Connell, and I really do trust that he will not let that happen again.
Yeah.
Because if it does happen again, where we see Jefferson struggling, like there's not a connection, like it could get ugly. Like we could be talking trade scenarios here where it's just like this guy's too talented to be having seasons like this. So I'm really inbound for like a big bounce back year for him. And I do feel good about this spot where like this is truly a wide receiver one overall, like that I wouldn't be shocked at all. So I think he deserves to be up there. And the only reason that he's not even higher with like right behind Jamar Chase is because of the season he had last year. So it is sort of value in my mind where he's going right now.
Yeah, no, I can agree. I think I'm looking into the risk a little more. So I have
It's
paused
fair.
at the 110, but yeah, if you're buying back in, 110's a steal. Number four. Top four are pretty straightforward, but we actually have Jackson Smith and Jigba here at four. For our wide receiver three and four, I'll also say Amon Ra is our wide receiver three. We're flipped on them, so we ended up just talking about it. Put Amon Ra just slightly above JSN, which ADP and ECR flipped. They have JSN three, Amon Ra four. Um, but yeah, I think we'll start with JSN, right? JSN should dominate target share again. It should probably come down from like 33% or 36%, whatever it was last year. He dominated targets, but he should get a very high target share again. You're attached to Sam Darnold, you're attached to a good team. He feels very safe. He feels fantastic. Um, I think he should be going like top five, top six in every fantasy draft. And then as for Amon Ra, I have Amon Ra at four, JSN at three, whereas you're the other way around. I think Amon Ra, I just like the Lions, I like the Lions a lot. I think JSN, though, will probably get a higher target share, which is why I got him slightly higher. But Amon Ra with the Lions, it's the same situation. Should have a very high floor, should be elite once again. He's finished top three, like number three, the last three straight seasons.
Yeah.
You
Yep.
can't really put him any lower than four. And I understand, I do have him at four, but you can't put him any lower just because he has been so good, elite offense. Um, but I think JSN just gets a higher target share, and they just won the Super Bowl as well. But both are fantastic picks. In my opinion, should both go like top six, top seven in every fantasy draft. I'm very
Mhm.
in on both players.
Yeah, I'll do the same as you and kind of talk about both just because we have them like right behind each other and I have them flipped. But in terms of JSN, like you said, it's such a safe pick. Monster year last year, like really forced his way into this tier of players. Like you don't know, random just puts up 1,710 touchdowns. Like this is a stud and he's going to continue to be a stud. It was just for me that neither have risk, like we just said, but looking at Amon-Ra and JSN, I feel just more confident in a floor and with like upside baked in with Amon-Ra. They're the only like not to just to play devil's advocate on JSN a little bit is just like new OC coming in. Like obviously Kubiak leaves, so it's still Sam Darnold. Which do we think Darnold can repeat this? Like he Super Bowl champion, you can't take any of that away from him, but it's still that history is there. Like is this going to be a new Sam Darnold? Is it going to be the same one? I don't know. So I feel better about Amon Ra just for this year, just because of the consistency he's shown, and that when you pick him, he's going to give you 1,410 touchdowns in his sleep. So he's turned into one of my favorite picks in the first round. Where like I would love the sixth pick or the seventh pick, or if he falls to you at eight, like that's such a steal in my mind. So that's just why I kind of have him flipped, just because if there was risk to either side, I go more towards the side of JSN, that just those sort of question marks that Amon Ra just doesn't have.
hmm That's fair. I think Kubiak leaving does, raise a bigger question than what they have over there in Detroit.
Yeah.
Um, as for number two, we have Puka Nacua. Um, seems to be consensus across the board. Yeah, this dude's a stud. This dude is unbelievable. I think honestly, like dealing with injury, a couple legal concerns is the only reason why I don't have him at one. But if you have him at one, by all means, like I'm all for it. This guy should be number four in every draft, in my opinion. So, yeah, I don't know what else to say. He dominated last year. He's an unbelievable player. You just got to hope he's actually out there on the field.
Yeah, no, and it is that is a real worry just based on the offseason he had. I think we're past the point of like I don't think he gets reprimanded in season.
I
I
agree.
think we can be safe to say that that won't be the case. But he is kind of dealing with an injury. I'm not worried about it. It feels more kind of like precautions going into the year, like not worth having this guy practice pads every day heading into the season, but such a stud. Like it's just like so consistent. If you want to talk about just like penciling in a stat line, this is the guy. So yeah, this feels like a good spot for him. And like you said, I think Jamar is kind of in a tier of his own, but like this Puka was the wide receiver one last year. So it's really, I can't fully be honest when I'm saying that, but for me personally, Jamar is just kind of the one.
Yeah, and you attach him to MVP Stafford, elite offense. And as you said, our wide receiver one, Jamar Chase. I think, again, elite offense, Joe Burrow. This dude dominates with Joe Burrow. And if he's to get hurt, well, they have Joe Flacco to back up now again. And that feels fantastic as opposed to who was it last year? Jake Browning? Was that who it was?
Yeah, and Jake Browning had good weeks too with Jamar. So
Yeah, it wasn't as nice though. I
no,
mean, all I'm saying is like you don't have as low a floor as you did last year at points with Jamar Chase because the QB situation is going to be just fine if Burrow goes down because of Flacco. And, let's just not even bake in the injury for a second. Like he is going to dominate with Burrow. We've seen it time and time again. This dude is so good. On any given week, he can go out, get 17 targets, 13 catches, 200 yards, and 45 fantasy points. Like this dude is just, he's that good. If you really want to go 101 and take a receiver and you go Jamar Chase instead of Jahmyr Gibbs or Bijan Robinson, I don't blame you. So yeah, I think we're both on the same page. This dude is just so dominant, and I think he has the least amount of question marks of this top four that we just talked about.
yeah, and I think just to echo even more how good this guy is, like we talked about CD Lamb earlier of like, oh, we're worried about, Pickens being involved in the offense. Can he really be that guy? Can he push? And we don't think he can. But like Jamar Chase has T Higgins, and we haven't even mentioned him. That's how good Jamar Chase is that he will get his, and it doesn't matter like who else is there. So I think that also like you said, um, points to Burrow as the guy that kind of can like support both of those guys, but he will support Jamar. And like the targets this guy got last year shows that, and the targets he gets every year shows that. So yeah, I personally wouldn't take him over the two running backs, but if you have three, you're laughing all the way to like a championship if you have
Yeah.
the right draft. So yeah, no, such a good player and feels like a value somehow at three.
Yeah, yeah, low key. But yeah, we'll call it there. That's our top 12 wide receivers. Um, yeah, and we have tight ends coming up. I think we're about to record that now, so I'll get that out to y'all tomorrow too. As you're watching this, you'll see the tight ends not too long after. Um, but yeah, then that wraps up the rankings, and then we're back to one show a week. My guys next week, and then we'll get into the season from there. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, top 12 wide receivers, a lot of studs in there this year. So should be a lot of fun. Um, but yeah, thanks for tuning in. As always, see y'all in the next episode.
Peace.